Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, traders. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap for the week ending June 17th. It's June 19th right now, Sunday afternoon, about another hour or so before the futures market opens. Happy Father's Day to all of you fathers out there. So let me get started. We're looking at the ES here. Oh, for some reason we're looking at the monthly, which we don't mean to be. Pardon me. Looking at the ES on the weekly time frame. We see that last week we were unable to hold the Tenkan-sen on a closing basis, so we put in a close below the Tenkan-sen. That makes the weekly analysis for the ES slightly less bullish, but it's still bullish overall because price action is still over the cloud. We do have a flat top to the cloud below current price action, and we will also when the new candle opens up. So whenever you have a flat in Ichimoku, there's a possibility that price action could be attracted towards that flat. So there is still that risk and possibility that that could happen. Although we did see some significant amount of buyers coming in. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can get closer to the candle. We did see a significant amount of buyers coming in off the bottom. This was a clear prior resistance level here. You can see from these other candles, prior support area, you can see from these other candles finding support in this general vicinity around 2040 that, and we put in a low last week of 2040.75. So we did indeed, once again, find buyers at that area. So we'll see if we are able to hold that area in the coming week. In order for things to get back to full bullish Ichimoku, we need to see price get back over the Tenkan-sen. Currently the Tenkan-sen's at 2070.88. It may open lower, reflecting this down move from last week. We could see the Tenkan-sen pointing down, or we could just see it continue to be flat. We also note that the Chikou, this red line over here, representing price action, time shifted 26 periods into the past, so 26 weeks in this case, is inside the cloud. It failed to hold the top of the cloud support. Top of the cloud support is about the same level as the Tenkan-sen at 2046 area. So bulls want to see price action get back over 2070.88 and hold that level. In order to see higher prices. We do also have a confirmation of a new downtrend, as we did make a lower high and a lower low. We do have a significantly larger bottoming tail than topping tail on this candle also. That's something to make note of. So looking forward, one of the wonderful things about Ichimoku is that we are able to predict into the future what's going to happen, because the clouds are drawn 26 periods into the future. So we have 26 weeks of clouds drawn out here. And we do see that we have a thin and twisty cloud coming up, which suggests that the potential for sideways action is more likely than the potential for lower or higher, really, at the moment. We do have after this flat period in the current cloud into the end of June, we do have a downward sloping cloud. So it will be important for price action, if you want to be bullish for price action, to continue to remain above the Tenkan-sen. If not, then the chance becomes more and more likely that we could be attracted back towards the flat cloud, top of this flat cloud here. And that's, let's see, all the way down at 1968.25. So we'll be watching as we move into July and August for a possible pullback to this lower area if we do not correct to the upside. All right, that's about enough for ES. Let's look at some other indexes in the US. Let's look at the Nasdaq. We see that we've been watching this triangle here, and that we do indeed have a downside break of this lower trend line. But I drew this trend line on a different time frame, and one could easily draw another trend line I don't like to use wicks, but you could draw a trend line using the wicks. That would, you know, you'd have some trouble. It would still be a trend line break. So, I mean, so I guess you know, technically no matter how you slice it, it is a trend line break on the Nasdaq. So let's eliminate all of the drawings. Take that complication out of the way, because you know, trend lines are subjective no matter how you, did I just say no matter how you slice it? I'm saying that again. No matter how you slice it, no matter how you draw it. So we see that last week's candle not only lost the support of the cloud, so it changed from overall bullish to overall neutral in Ichimoku terms, because anytime price action is inside the cloud, it's neutral, and it does have support all the way to the bottom of the cloud. We also lost the Tenkan-sen support at 44.2775, and we could be headed towards the bottom of the cloud. So if the downtrend continues on the Nasdaq, I can see a potential test of the bottom of the cloud at 43.2388, so keep that level in mind. If we do lose that level, we could potentially test the Kijun-sen down below at 42.80. So keep that level in mind. Also, if we do lose that prior mentioned 43.2388 level. We see, if we look over here at the Chikou, that the Chikou is attempting to hold the top of the cloud, but indeed failed. You can see that there was a little bit of a bottoming tail in this last week's candle, which is typical when price is trying to hold the cloud with the Chikou is trying to hold the cloud over here. But it did close inside the cloud just by a bit. So it's possible that new weekly candle that the price will try to get back out of the cloud, because it's really not inside the cloud that much, the Chikou that is. If we do get a move to the upside, we're going to have upside resistance at the Tenkan-sen, which is currently 44.2775, and then also at the top of the cloud, which is around 44.60. So keep those levels in mind to the upside as well. And similar to the S, we also have a flat and twisty cloud coming up into the future. Let's look at the Russell. Russell, we see that we came up and tested above the cloud and put in a potential reversal candle, and then we did indeed get a reversal. But interestingly, this is really a beautiful Ichimoku chart. We did hold the Tenkan-sen. So currently, the fact that we did hold the Tenkan-sen is actually, you know, price is technically bearish because it's under the cloud, but it's kind of bullish that it did indeed hold the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen is also bull crossed, which means the blue line here, the Tenkan-sen, is crossed over the Kijun-sen. Whenever that is the case, that's a bull cross. Whenever the Kijun-sen is crossed over the Tenkan-sen, that's a bear cross, which is how it was before this cross occurred on April 18th. So it's important to watch the Tenkan-sen at 1136.50 to hold as support on TF. Look for a reaction there if we do trade lower. And then if we are unable to hold that level, then there's a fair amount of levels between there and the Kijun-sen, but the Kijun-sen's down there at 1063.30. If we do get a move to the upside, we're going to be looking at potential resistance at the cloud at around 1163.90 next week for the Russell. I wouldn't be surprised to see a candle that sort of fits right into this area, right between the Tenkan-sen and the cloud, coming up next week. But we'll see what happens. We do have a downtrend, so it's possible that we could trade down into this range between the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen. If you wanted to get started looking for levels that we might see a pause, if that is the case, you know, you can just look for some horizontal levels. Obviously, the first one that we see that's real obvious is around 1130.40, sort of where we bounce on this candle, and then we have some other prior support and resistance you can see going back to this end of last year at around, you know, 1111. All right, let's move on to the Dow. The Dow is still bullish, as it's still above the cloud, but it did close underneath the Tenkan-sen, which is a change from last week where it remained on a closing basis above the Tenkan-sen. If we do trade lower, we can see that the Chikou, this red line here, is going to come in contact with the Tenkan-sen at the 17,457 level. So we could expect potential bounce. You see that that was obviously very important support for all of these candles here. So that is definitely a key support level. So if we do trade lower, we could find support at that level again. If we do not find support at that level, we could be potentially looking for support at this cloud down here at the top of the cloud. Similar, you might remember this chart similar to the ES. And the top of the cloud here is at 17,069. Let's move to look at some metals. So looking at gold, we see that gold is bullish above the cloud, also above the Tenkan-sen. It's a very bullish last 3 weeks. Although last week we did get a pretty big topping tail up into above the 1300 level, and we closed at 1301.60, so just slightly above the 1300 level after trading all the way up to let's see, 1318.90 was the high. So we closed, 17 and change off the highs. If we do get a pullback, we can expect to potentially find support at the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen is currently down here at 1260, but it will obviously most likely be at a higher level when the new candle opens up. I wouldn't be surprised to see it up here at this prior resistance turn to support level around 1275, thereabouts. But gold is bullish in Ichimoku terms, fully bullish, above the Tenkan-sen as well. Let's look at silver. Silver put in a long leg spinning top type doji type candle up here. It didn't retest the prior highs from a few weeks ago in May, and it did sell off significantly after putting in its high. The high on silver was 1788, and we put in a close at 1752, so 36 cents lower than the high. If we see a correction lower when silver opens, we can look and see where the Tenkan-sen is at. Tenkan-sen is currently at 1694.5, and we'll probably, I'm not really sure, it might actually go flat, reflecting this significant topping tail. The momentum, was quite strong, but then it did pull back significantly off the highs. We also see that the Chikou over here found resistance at the top of the cloud here at 1789.3, and of course the high of silver 1788, just one penny below that. So that's obviously was a problem for silver, the Chikou hitting the top of the cloud, and it was clearly rejected by the cloud here. I did mention that last week, and I did mention that on Twitter intra-week. I mentioned that could be the case again, that the Chikou could get rejected at the top of the cloud, and therefore we could see some selling, and indeed we did. All right, let's move into the some treasuries, looking at the 30-year. See that we did last week put in, or 2 weeks ago, put in a breakout from this rectangular consolidation pattern. We did break above, and then we continued the move higher. When we got the FOMC news that rates weren't going up, treasuries continued to move higher. Although we do have a significant topping tail up here, this could be a potential trend reversal to the downside. If we do get a trend reversal to the downside, it could be just a brief correction heading down towards the Tenkan-sen, and then for a continued move higher. Tenkan-sen is currently at 166.03. It should probably be a bit higher when the new candle opens up. So we'll see wherever that is and look for the potential for support at that level and a potential buy setup on the weekly time frame for the 30-year Treasury bond. Or a loss of that level could be a potential short. Looking at ZN, it's a very similar chart, even a slightly more bearish type reversal type pattern going on with such a large topping tail, indicating that we could get a pullback back down to the Tenkan-sen. We do have an open body gap in here also to make note of. In Ichimoku, that type of gap is called a window. I'll show you how to draw that real quickly. Something like this. And those usually do get filled. So potentially look for a fill of that, and that body gap would be filled when we reach, let's see, 131.160. So keep that level in mind as well for a potential gap fill, and then wherever the new Tenkan-sen opens up. And then, as I said, on the 30-year, a loss of the Tenkan-sen could be a potential short trade, or a long trade if it manages to hold. But overall, of course, quite bullish for the 10-year. In fact, potentially heading towards all-time highs. Let's just briefly take a look at the monthly. All-time highs are not that far away. You can see up here at 131.155, I believe. No, sorry, 135.155. That's the level. That's the prior high. So just a little context there. All right. So let's take a look at the dollar via the DX futures contract. We see that the dollar put in a bit of a spike and then sold off and closed under the cloud. So that's a change of a trend from last week. We closed inside the cloud, so the dollar was neutral inside the cloud last week, and then this week it is back to bearish under the cloud. We do have solid previously tested support at the Tenkan-sen below at 93.893, so I do think that if we continue lower, that will be a potential support area. And but overall, it looks to me like we're looking at a sideways range between the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen here under the cloud. We do have an arch-shaped cloud coming up. Usually, when we do have this type of cloud configuration, it's common for price action to try to hug the contour of the underside of the cloud. So I would not be surprised to see a move higher, perhaps after a test of the Tenkan-sen that would be limited potentially on a closing basis by the Kijun-sen at 95.915. And while we're looking at the dollar, let's not forget to look at the dollar-yen pair. So the dollar-yen has been bearish under the cloud, bear flagging, and then last week broke this consolidation area and did indeed make a new low under the consolidation zone. We did see also, though, that the Tenkan-sen went flat, so there is a potential for a bounce back towards the flat Tenkan-sen. Whenever you see the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen go flat, it's usually an indication that we need a bit of mean reversion. They sort of similar to a Bollinger Band situation or an oversold, overbought situation. Let's just take a look at. Oh, I completely forgot crude. My crude people are going to be like, "What? How did she forget me?" They wouldn't have had the patience to come all the way to the end of the video. I'll have to mention that. That the crude analysis is at X point on the video. But anyway, so crude managed to close above the cloud, so that's very significant. I was talking about that last week, I believe on Twitter, but maybe in chat room, I'm not sure. We put in a close at 48.86, and the cloud is at 48.56, so 30 cents above the top of the cloud after very significantly bullish bounce. I was expecting the potential would be high that we could come down and test the Tenkan-sen, but we didn't quite make it down to 45.34. So as long as price remains above the cloud, it's still bullish, but you notice that we do have a lower cloud coming into July and the beginning of August. So even if price action does stay above the cloud, we could see a correction lower So just keep an eye on the contours of the cloud in the coming weeks. If we do trade back into the cloud, we will be in a sort of neutral scenario for crude, and continue to find support at the Tenkan-sen. It's possible that the Tenkan-sen might be tipping up, reflecting this bullish momentum at the end of this candle, but we'll see. Currently it's at 45.34. I also wanted to take a look at some commodities just quickly. Taking a look at corn. Corn continued its trek higher, but was unable to close above the prior high. The prior high was 439.25, and we tested a high of 439, so we almost made it there. Then we closed slightly below the highs, 437.75. Still, corn is still looking quite bearish. Quite bullish on the weekly time frame. And you note, if you look at the RSI down here, it is overbought on RSI, and that is a potential warning sign. Not only when we did see that big topping tail on last week's candle, but usually when corn does hit that overbought RSI, it does tend to correct. Let's see if we can find some more examples of that. Not near term, but the last time that it got overbought, obviously we had a very significant correction lower. So be forewarned that there is a potential for that, and it would be actually healthy for corn to maybe consolidate sideways for a while. It's quite extended above the cloud, which is flat, remember, and above the Tenkan-sen as well. Let's look at coffee. Coffee is still pretty bullish. It failed to make a higher high, but it did make a higher low. It's a bullish hammer type candle, and found significant or came almost down to support inside the cloud at the Tenkan-sen down here at 131.95. I think the low was 132.15, so just a little bit above the Tenkan-sen is where it bounced after testing that low area. So neutral for coffee, but bullish inside the cloud. Bullish inside the neutral cloud. How about that? We do have a narrowing cloud ahead, so we could see potential range trade in this general vicinity, but we'll see what happens. Let's look at cocoa. So cocoa is neutral inside the cloud. Pretty significant candle came down and tested all the way under the cloud, under the Tenkan-sen, under the Kijun-sen. We do have a bull cross Tenkan-sen over the Kijun-sen here, and the fact that we closed inside the cloud and above the Tenkan-sen is relatively bullish for cocoa moving ahead. We also have the Chikou above the cloud. So it's possible that we could test the Tenkan-sen level at 30.62 and then sort of springboard higher inside the cloud. That's just a guess. If we lose that Tenkan-sen level at 30.62, then we could definitely test the bottom of the cloud at 30.49 and then potentially below at the Kijun-sen at 3,000 or wherever it happens to be when the new weekly candle opens up. Let's also just take a look at the euro. Some pretty crazy moves with all the Brexit stuff going on. We see that the euro in the 6E contract is inside the cloud, so neutral, and came down and tested the Kijun-sen at 111.793 and put in a bounce, pretty bullish hammer candle type bounce, and is yet so far limited by the Tenkan-sen above at 113.665. That's also generally basically the same area of where the cloud is. So this week we're going to have one more weekly candle inside the cloud, unless it breaks over the top of the cloud at around 113.60, I should say. If we do get a move lower on the euro, we can potentially come down and test the Kijun-sen again at 111.793. And that's going to do it for me for the weekly Ichimoku wrap for this week. Thanks for joining me. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up on YouTube. And good luck trading, and have a great week. Thanks.